Hey everybody, it's Steve, Short Shift Garage. So, we're going to enter the world of controversy. I love it. In the last video, we looked at the details of fuel trims, and that was all good and well. We discovered some pretty cool things, I think. But it's always bugged me because I've never liked using short-term fuel trims as part of the fuel trim calculations. I just didn't like it. But everybody said, yeah, you got to do it that way. You got to do it that way. You got to, and I got into good discussions with a lot of different people, and they all said, no, you've got to have the short terms in there. Well, sorry to say, friends, but you're wrong. All right, how can I make such a bold statement? Well, let me show you all something. In your engine tune file and under the fuel system, you'll find evap purge. And both of these are disabled. And that's because this is a 2023. So from 2010 to 2014, you had the option to enable or disable these. But in 2015, I believe, I verified it on a 2017. So if your 2015 doesn't have it, then I'm sorry. But I was only able to verify back to a 2017. And looks just like my 2023. I do know that there is a intake manifold model, and this has been reported. I have no reason to not believe it, but that intake manifold model accounts for how much purge and PCV are contributing to fuel. So that in itself tells you that, we don't just have fuel injectors getting us fuel. We've got PCV and purge. And the fact that there's an adaptation schedule here with specific amounts, which appear to be, it appears that we could alter these, but since I don't know what the underlying model is and it's not exposed, I'm hesitant to change these in any way, shape, or form. I don't know what they're going to do. Maybe someday when I want to experiment, I'll change them. But right now, I'm going to tell you just leave them alone. But what it does is tells us that this is part of the adaptation process. Now, does it get added to long-term fuel trims, which are adaptives? I would have to say yes. So if the answer to the question is truly yes, then our long-term fuel trims have already collected enough data to exist in the first place. As you know, when you when you clear your adaptives, it takes time for the adaptives to return, and it also takes time for them to mature. So if there are no long-term fuel trims right after we clear them, then we would have to assume, since this is appearing to be part of the fueling process, that these adaptions are going to be part of the long term. They certainly can't be any part of the short term, because the short term itself is just measuring oxygen. Now, true, short-term fuel trims do get sent into a database at a certain level, and they are the source for the resulting long-term fuel trims. But once these long-term fuel trims are established enough to be used, and there's like I said, there's an underlying algorithm down there somewhere that says, hey, when they reach this level, go ahead and go. Start using them. Because all of a sudden, out of nowhere, you'll start using your long-term fuel trims. Okay, so that kind of explains that. We know now, we understand that we have three fuel sources. Okay, you have PCV, you have purge, evap purge, and you have your fuel injectors. So let's get over here and we'll just look at our short-term fuel trim. So this is just bank one. And you can see it's all over the place. Well, if it's all over the place, how come our long-term adaptees aren't? Why don't we ever go, if we look at long-term fuel trim, why isn't there any positive numbers here? They're all pulling fuel out. Well, because long-term fuel trims don't add fuel. Never have, never will. I have a filter here set up to where it says long-term fuel trim, bank one, anything greater than 0, which would mean it was adding fuel, show it to me. And of course, there is nothing. So there's proof in the pudding. Long-term fuel trims never, ever add fuel. Now, when will we need to add fuel? Well, if you're adding fuel during purge, then there's something in the model that's wrong, or your purge values are not fitting the model. It could be PCV, it could be evap. So let's just, for the heck of it, see what happens if we say, okay, I don't want to see any of the evap moments. Anytime the evap solenoid is open, I don't want to see that in short-term fuel trims. And this is what you get. So you went from this to this. And you're saying, hey, cool, I got rid of all that other junk. No, you really didn't. Okay? All you did was took out all of the events that happened while the purge was open, and that was like 90% of your log. So, yeah, not 90%, but say 80. 80%, sometime there's at least some purge going on. Now, so you can't just say, well, turn off the purge. I don't want to see anything with purge, because we don't have a way of turning off PCV or monitoring it. And, we can monitor PCV. There's no sensor on the PCV. There's really no way to monitor it. It has to match up, and I don't know how they do it. I haven't figured it out completely yet. I suspect it has something to do with vacuum, but I am not 100% sure. So I'm not going to tell you that PCV does this and does that and this is how it works, because like I said, I don't know. And I don't know anybody that does. And I've asked several sources. So what are we left with? Well, let's go here to long-term fuel trim bank one. There you go. Beautiful. Okay. We have long-term fuel trim, and these are mature. This car was driven probably 200 miles before I did this log. So my long-term fuel trims are very mature. They are not going to change dramatically throughout a single logging session. Okay, they're going to be pretty close to the same all the time. Now, just if you see a 7 here, it doesn't mean it didn't occur. And okay, trying to figure out how to. Okay, so this is a continuous log. Even though we divided it into our P ratio and specific RPM, it's covering everything. So if we got here and we weren't exactly on 1926, we were on one side or the other, The adapters use that in the calculation as to how much it's going to apply. And so you could take this same exact log and look at it, or excuse me, not the same exact log, but without a tune, you could take it out and drive it, try to accomplish the same thing again, and you may have different numbers, slightly different, okay, because they might occur at, this slot might get allocated data based on a different RPM, or I think you get what I'm saying here. It could be different every time, but it's not going to be huge. It's going to be stable, and so because of that, this is why I'm saying that we want to use this, our long-term fuel trims, when we update our VE table with the neural network trainer. Now, I'm not the only one that thinks this way, and I'm surprised nobody has yelled and screamed at HP tuners about it. Maybe they did, I don't know. But a lot of people out there are still swearing up and down that you need to add short-term and long-term together. But I'm pretty sure what I just showed you explains why you don't. Like I said, we don't know what that intake manifold model looks like. So we can't say, is this the correct way to do it, or is it not? But what we can do is look at our short-term fuel trims and realize that we can't stabilize this at all, and it's never going to be the same, not even close. And it more than likely, if we merge the two together, it's going to corrupt the long-term fuel trims, which are stable. So if we corrupt, why would we want to use corrupt data? And that's the big question. And the answer to, in my head, says I don't want to use corrupt data. Will I accomplish the same thing? Absolutely, I will. So if I go in and say I use very conservative updates when I do updates. I do them at 25%. So I just take this stuff here and I divide it by 2, which gives me a 50%. And then when I apply it, I apply 50%, which is one of the options in the HP tuners. So I apply at 25%. Now, when I come back, because I'm going to clear my adaptives. When I come back, I'm going to wait until I get mature adaptives built again before I compare this log file to my next one. And if everything went according to plan, which I can see no reason why it wouldn't, I should see approximately a 25% reduction in the trims here. It should actually, the numbers should go down. Okay. So there you go. I would be comparing stable data with new stable data. I wouldn't be corrupting it with garbage data from my O2 sensors, which is, it's important to have O2 sensors, but obviously it's pretty important. But can we trust it? And I'd say no. No, you can't. It's just no way to trust it. So it'll make the rotor run great, but trusting it for doing precision fuel management, no. So, and unfortunately, I've just done us a huge favor by giving us these long-term fuel trims. So use them, and that's where we're going to go. So I look at my long-term fuel trim, bank 1 and bank 2. I'm looking at this stuff, and there's really only 2 cells that I'd ever worry about. Anything above 5, I'm going to worry about. So it's 2 or 3 cells. But would I do the complete update at 25%? Sure. Why not? If I can get these down to 0, that'd be cool. If I can get everything else down to 0. Now, since we use P ratio, and P ratio is map divided by Barrow, we you don't have to worry if you drive these down to zero that you're going to be tuning for the environment. That's a whole different thing, okay? It's not what we're doing here. We're tuning for performance. But we're not tuning at the track. At the track, you're doing a lot of things different, okay? You're not doing, you're looking at DA. Right now I'm at 4,000 feet, but DA for me is more like about 6,000 feet. That's not going to show up here, so you have to add it in. You have to add in the DA to make your P ratio correct. And then you are tuning for the environment. But that's, like I said, that's a whole different process. We'll discuss that someday, but not right now. So here's what I will do. I'll go in and I'll set up my camshaft tables so that I can do my updates through the neural network trainer, and I'll get that tune back, and when it comes back I'm going to install it, reset my adaptives, and drive the car until I have mature fuel trims again, and I'll do a side-by-side comparison, and I should see if all my theory and everything else is correct. I should see maybe a 15% reduction. Typically changing it by 25% once it interpolates it gets you maybe 10% or 15% reduction. So don't come over here and say, I did 25%, why didn't I get it? Well, it's because the VE table gets interpolated, and that data that you change gets spread across the whole VE table. So yeah, you might not see these numbers come back 25% less, but you'll see some change, and that's a safe way to tune a car. Okay, so I'm going to switch back to the desktop, and let's talk about something else here. All right, so if you go to HP Tuner's website and you pull up the training for the neural network trainer, and I was surprised to find this, by the way, it states in there you either use long-term fuel trims or you use short-term fuel trims. And it's a little bit misleading in the fact that, and only for the reason that everybody has always been told to use long-term plus short-term. And, if you take that mental picture out of your head and just read the words and interpret it by the words, it's saying use long-term fuel trims or short-term fuel trims. When would I use short-term fuel trims? Okay, so if I was dyno tuning and I had finished all my wide open throttle pulls, the car had cooled down again, I was back and everything was normal, I'd reset up the load control, so I'm mimicking a street environment, but the car's not ready to go out on the street yet, okay? It's not ready to be driven. So how do I get it there? Well, I've done all my modifications. This is like a situation where you put a cam in. I got all my changes made, and now I just want to get it dialed in enough to go out and start getting some good adaptive data. So I would put it on the, obviously, I've just tuned the car, so my adaptives aren't built up. What other choice do I have but short term? Unless I want to tie the dyno up for 2 weeks. So obviously you're not going to do that. So you would use, in those situations, use the short-term fuel trims, because that is a time when you don't have long terms, and it just makes sense. Now once you get it close, then you take it out on the street and you gather your long-term fuel trim adaptives and let them mature, and then you finalize the tune. So there's that finalizing, and you'll hear these guys saying, yeah, I took it out for a drive and it didn't drive exactly right, so I changed some things. Well, that was after the dyno tune, okay? So that's when you would do short term. Obviously, if you turn the neural network off, you're only going to have short-term fuel trims because there's no adaptives at all then, and that's another time you would use short-term fuel trims. And I've done that. I've done it on, I've turned the neural network off just to have some fun tuning. Car ran good. But anyway, so what they're telling you is basically if you read the words and don't let your brain, all the crap you've been told all along, it probably wasn't, I don't know if it was right or wrong, but it works. I mean, you can do tuning via the long-term plus short-term. We did it. We've done it many times, and the results weren't bad. But would they be better if we just used the long terms? And the answer to that is yeah. And even HP Tuners goes and says that. So I'm not the only one. If you get an argument, tell them to go read the instructions at HP Tuners. Don't yell at me. I'm not wrong this time. Okay, so remember we have 3 fueling sources. We have PCV, we have EVAP, and we have fuel injectors. That right there tells you, yeah, your long terms are the way to go. Okay, guys, thanks a lot. Appreciate everything. Like and subscribe and share. Sharing this video out there on social media and things like that. Share it to your friends or whatever. That really boosts me up here on the YouTube channel. I'd appreciate it if you can. Thanks a lot. Y'all have a good one. Bye.